Hi, this video is to demonstrate a parallel clamp that I had to make for my track saw. I have a Dewalt Track Saw, and one of the problems is if you're doing a bunch of rip cuts and they're long, and I can't afford the big long track, so I use the little gizmo that holds two tracks, this one and this one together. You can be off a little bit. You really have to, so you're back and forth adjusting. So what I made is these parallel devices for this track. Now, they cost me about $20 a piece. There's a few screws and some scrap wood. And I'm still going to change a little bit. I'm still kind of tweaking it. But for the most part, this is what it's going to look like. Now, what I did was I just went and bought these at Home Depot, and I cut them off. And I cut these off so that they're only about 8 inches or so wide. And I can slide this up and down, and if you can see here, I've got measurements. And of course, on one side I'm measuring to this end of the track, to the other side I'm measuring to this end of the track. So these numbers look like they're off, like that's obviously less than 1 inch to there, but it's really measuring from this T that's here, not from the end. So, and then what I did is I used white electrician's tape, a 1/2 inch, so that I still had marks, and I adjusted this so that I knew that I would be on a good tick mark and start these things, and it really works well. I'll give a tighter view of how I did these in just right after this, but let's go into how I use it. I've set these so that I want to make a 20-inch cut. I'm going to go ahead and put together the two tracks, and even if I had the longer track, it would be fat. I would need 3 of them. So instead of $60, I would have spent $40. But I wanted to have the third one for this track because the center, it just makes me nervous on how accurate it is. So, and if you're wondering how I do this out here, what kind of cutting table I have, I just did a video on that. I may upload these at the same time, but I thought it would be appropriate to do that video separate from this one. But it's a very cheap way of making a table. You can do full sheets of plywood, really easy, cut through them, they don't fall off, you don't have to hold them in any different ways. But anyway, so what I do is you see, unfortunately, Dewalt only has one track down the middle. Now, if you've seen the Festool kind, they have another little, I think, T-track towards the edge, and they make a parallel clamp for theirs. I think they're very expensive, but I'm sure there's some YouTube videos on how to make those. This one's more difficult because it's right in the middle, so I really can't leave the clamp on while I'm sawing. And the Festool one, it's my understanding you can actually leave it connected, make your cut, and then move it to the next spot, and just keep moving it in. These I only had to make them so long because I can work from either side. So you don't have to be a full 48 inches long. So anyway, so in that it goes, and I did this right in the middle where I have that. So that's that one. Now I am going to make a little adjustment here so that this will fit, so it'll sit. As I bring it out, it wants to tip. So I'm going to have to make a little piece of wood that holds this up. I'll figure something out. That's down the road someday, because this is going to work the way it is. Anyway, there's 2 of them. Now, if this was real long, I probably could get by with these 2. But I'll go ahead and set this one. And so I'm pretty much done with those. Then I just take my clamps run underneath, clamp these, and then pull them away. You actually don't have to clamp them because they have the stuff on the bottom. If I've got a real warped piece of wood or something, I might clamp them. And then this is a battery one. But anyway, and I've marked on the blue part of the blue tape on here, knowing that my blade goes on that side of the line to give me a full, I've set this for 20 inches, to give me a full 20 inches from here back. So the 3/32 kerf is on the other side. So that works really well. And of course I can hook in my dust collection to this and so on. But the big thing is these. So I'll show a little closer view of how I did these. Anyway, that's it. Once I cut that, then I can move it again, and all I have to do is loosen these and move them to the right number, and I'm good. Thank you. Oh, here's my thing. I'll have the next part here in a second. Okay, I'm going to do the rest of it here, but I'm going to point the camera down so my face won't be in it, but you'll hear me, and I'll kind of give a quick idea how I did my glue up for these things. Remember, this is for a Dewalt Track Saw. Okay, let's see if we get this right the first time. Just to kind of give you an idea what I did. I wanted to make 3 pieces, so I made a long enough piece that I could cut 3 times the length that I wanted, which here is it's a little over 6 inches, but it doesn't matter. Just up to you. So I laid a couple pieces of 3/4 down. Now the first thing I did was I took a piece of packing tape and laid it on the T so that I don't get any glue, because I want my saw to slide really well, and put that in here. That also made it a little looser too. Lay one piece of wood in, another piece of 1/4 inch, so those two are 1/4 inch. Then what I did is I put a piece a 1/2 inch over that, and and what I did was I put some spacers underneath this to bring it up enough that when I put pressure down on it, it would glue up. And then I don't have a piece of 1/2 inch here, but then I just put a little piece of 1/2 inch under here and glued all that together. Then in the end I cut it all flush, cut this flush. I only had a short piece here of this 1/2 inch. I didn't have a great big piece like this. And that gave me this part, which basically you can see it right there. That's what we got. Okay? And that works really well. And then you can true them up and cut them up. And now let's see if I can get this in such a way you can see the edges. You can kind of see how it was glued up. And what I did is I had to, because these things, if you look underneath, they have almost a little, they fit in like a dado slot in the metal. So I made little dado saws with a dado blade, and that was a 30. That was the next size up. I had to use, of course, the 2 outside 1/8 dado blades. Then I had to use 3 1/8 and a 3/32 and a 1/16. So I think that's a 32nd over 3/4. But anyway, you'll have to kind of check it. But it worked out really well. It's sat in there real nice. I used some 1/2 inch screws to screw it down. And of course I cut, you can look, there's a video I have on this little chop saw that I have with a really good Freud non-ferrous type blade. And that's why I cut all my aluminum track up with and everything. Now this end, I just put a block of wood on it for a fence, but I think I'm going to change a little bit and put a little notch in it so that it sits up flat, because it wants to kind of tilt a little bit and I want it to sit flat. So If you got any questions, go ahead and ask, because I'm really not good at showing how to build these as much as I can show you that's what it is, and probably for a beginner it's a little bit more difficult, but hopefully you can see by this, and ask questions if you need to. Thanks. I thought I'd show you real quick the saw I use, and that's a Freud non-ferrous type blade. It's just a cheap Ryobi, but I use it for all that. But look at all of the metal shavings. I vacuumed those up with a completely different vacuum. They're all over the floor. I didn't realize I was going to end up having this much, and then all the holes I drilled and so on. So aluminum is messy. I should have done this outside.